Alrighty. Call the meeting to order. All three commissioners are present. It was properly posted on April 23rd, District 1. Or is it 3? 1?
Yes.
Thanks.
Good morning. We have a special guest this morning, Pastor Lewis F. Weekly. And while he is coming up, I will read his biography. Pastor Lewis F. Weekly is a dedicated servant of both his country and his faith, currently serving as the Associate Minister of Reach Out Ministries. With a background in the U.S. Marines, he brings a wealth of experience and dedication to his ministry work. Having served one tour of duty in Okinawa, Japan, during his 3.5 years in the Marines, Lewis embodies the values of discipline, service, and sacrifice. Though semi-retired, he remains committed to serving humanity and his community, echoing the teachings of Jesus Christ. Lewis's primary goal is to emulate the love and compassion of Jesus, touching the lives of those he encounters. He believes in the transformative power of the Holy Spirit, aiming to introduce others to Jesus Christ and guide them towards a life centered on eternal salvation. Through his ministry work, Lewis strives to change lives and inspire others to walk the path of faith. Pastor Weekly, would you like to come up and lead our opening prayer? Would you all stand with me?
Good morning to you all. It's an honor to be here before you all. Let us bow our heads and pray. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you that this is the day that you've made. We will rejoice, for we are among the living, those that you've chosen. We're so grateful that your presence is invited here. Your word declared that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. We thank you that you've set that precedence. We ask your blessings upon this wonderful, prestigious panel. And among those that are here, we ask your counsel. We cannot do without it. We submit to the authority of the Lord Jesus Christ, that we be all that you called us to be, to serve one another in love and honor you in all that we do. We give you thanks. We give you the glory and the honor that's due your name alone. For it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to its republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Pastor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move our minutes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the claims?
I'll move our claims.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
P card is standard.
Move our P card statement.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any change to the blanket?
I'll move our blanket purchase orders.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any individual consideration on the consent docket? If not, is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
District 1.
Items 18 and 19 are just standard copier lease renewals for our downtown office and our yard. So I will move approval for 18 and 19.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. And then items 20, we've got a lot here. 20 through 37 are all mutual cooperation agreements. And I will, if it's all right, I will take them as a group, but I'll read out each individual contract. City of Del City, Town of Forest Park, Town of Jones City, Town of Lake Aluma, Midwest City, Nakoma Park, Oklahoma City, Smith Village, Spencer, The Village, Choctaw Nakoma Park Schools, Crooked Oak Schools, Crutcho Public Schools, Jones Public Schools, Middale Public Schools, Millwood Public Schools, Oakdale Schools, and Oklahoma City Public Schools. So those are all mutual aid agreements for the next fiscal year. I will move approval of items 20 through 37.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
On 38, I know we have at least John Michael Williams here. Is there anybody else that you wish to speak to this?
Members of the commission, I'm John Michael Williams, and this is a lease revenue bond financing with bonds to be issued by Oklahoma Industries Authority, which is an Oklahoma County beneficiary trust for the Oklahoma I-89 school district. And the school district has approved this transaction by unanimous vote. And if you approve it today, Oklahoma Industries Authority this afternoon will consider the item. And this is Nate Ellis of Public Finance Law Group, who can also answer questions.
Any questions?
Nate, could you tell us the general purpose for these bonds?
Certainly, as you recall, back in November of 22, Oklahoma City Schools passed a bond election, about $955 million in total. And so this represents the effort of the school district to execute on some of the signature projects that were part of that and be able to advance fund those and have those projects open by August of 2026 as they had pledged to the voters. So this is the venue to be able to, or the avenue to be able to get those projects done immediately, as opposed to having to issue bonds over a long period of time and it be 5-10 years before a lot of the projects are done. So Scott Randall, who's the Chief Operating Officer of Oklahoma City Schools, is also here, and Chris Gander, who's the Financial Advisor. So certainly if they want to add anything. No.
Are you able to say what the first, I know it was a very long list of projects. Are you able to say what the first couple ones are that are going to let?
Yes, there was 14 transformational projects that were part of that Nate references, kind of the signature projects that we really promoted as part of the campaign in relationship to the overall bond issuance. We actually have already started the first one, which was Class NSAS Middle School. We have several in the queue as far as Belle Isle Enterprise Middle School. It'll be 5 classroom addition, new gymnasium, safe room. Right behind that is Capitol Hill High School, the new Capitol Hill High School. It's still undetermined about the future of the existing building. I will reference that. But so the new Capitol Hill High School, and it's just, so right behind that, we just over the course of the next 5 to 6 months, we'll basically kind of have a project or projects coming forward to our board for approval. And this is, again, kind of the vehicle that we need to make this happen to deliver on our promise to the voters as far as having the projects open by August of 2026 and available for students to use.
Thank you.
I'm familiar with it, having put this on, so I don't have any additional questions. If you don't, then is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen, for
Thank
coming
you.
down.
Thank you.
We have a few people signed up to speak on this next item, but I just will start off with a brief introduction. My intent behind this item was to just see if there's a commitment from the commission to want to consider moving court services to team. We have had staff conversations going back to the fall in some cases about this, and there's no point in exploring it any further if there's no commitment from the commission to do so. I've had a number of conversations with our district attorney, Vicki Bahana, who's here, and Chris Steele, who's also here from team, and the public defender. And they're available to speak if you'd like to. I wanted to do this early enough, if we were going to do this by the end of the year, to make sure that we had time for transition purposes, because we don't want a premature launch. So it would need to have, obviously, some logistics fleshed out. And I think that most of the concerns from the people that I've talked to on the phone have all been in subjects that we've already broached and had a ready-made answer for. So I think that the preparation behind it is pretty good, but obviously there's always potential for some details that we haven't thought of to come up. Ms. Bahana, do you want to say anything?
Let me first address, because I think it's important for the commissioners to understand what has been happening in the county with regard to pretrial release. So there is a statute that allows for a county and/or a private entity to do pretrial release upon agreement of the parties. Oklahoma County, for the first time in quite a while, in the district attorney's office, has hired two ADAs to review NCIC reports and background checks that court services personnel provides to us and to the court, Judge McCrae, before somebody appears in initial appearance. That information is critical to an evaluation of whether or not somebody should remain in custody or whether somebody can be released pre-trial, waiting their trial. They provide, I think their employees get there at 5 o'clock in the morning, pull NCIC reports, conduct interviews, and then provide those reports. So I want, first of all, everybody to understand there is a process now in place. It's been in place since January of this year, where we are intelligently reviewing evidence and facts to make decisions on who gets released. It's important for the commissioners to understand that is the function that court services provides now in providing this background check and these NCIC reports. That's a law enforcement function. That function has to remain with a law enforcement agency. I think right now, and Grant can speak to this, that function is provided, I think, in connection with the sheriff's department. If for some reason those employees are moved, those employees are going to have to move somewhere else, that for somebody that has a law enforcement function, whether it's the DA's office or the sheriff's department or whatever, but that is a critical need for this evaluation and assessment of who gets released pre-trial. Okay, so that's important for you to know. I understand, and I've had multiple conversations, I think, with the commissioners, with people in the community. I was on the phone last night until about 8 o'clock talking to people in law enforcement who have concerns about this move. And I think, I mean, look, it is not my lane for this, for me to tell you what you need to do. I don't know what determinations are coming into play to determine whether or not court services should move to a private entity. I know there's a statute that allows it. I don't know if these decisions are based upon finances. I don't know if it's based upon efficiency. It makes sense that groups are all coalesced together, right? So that we run efficiently. But whatever the commissioners decide to do, the supervision piece is something, because that's what we're talking about doing, moving supervision now to team, and team will provide the supervision. I've had conversations with Chris Steele and with Jamie Patterson about the need, if team is going to take this responsibility on, to make sure that they report all violations to the judge and to the DA's office. We have to know what people are doing to be able to make assessments. Do we need to tweak their conditions a little bit? And by the way, you should know most people are getting released now on pretrial release with conditions. That is that they have to report to somebody for services or report in the community. But it's going to be very, very important for, if this supervision piece moves to a private entity, that the reporting function occurs. I was told last night it's something that we haven't talked about, and that is the law enforcement function that court services supervision officers provide the law enforcement. And let me give you an example. Somebody's not released pre-trial, they're on GPS. They commit another offense. Law enforcement needs to find that individual. They rely upon court services to provide information to them about the location of the individual so they can be taken into custody. Again, a public safety need. I've not had conversations with Team Chris or Jamie about that function and the need to make sure that the supervision officers work closely like the court services officers do now in providing information. And then the issue that I had with law enforcement last night, in particular the chief, was his concern about not having a plan B. What happens if this doesn't work? What happens if reporting doesn't happen? Or whether we're not getting timely information on GPS location for a defendant we need to find. What's going to happen? Well, if it takes 30 days to terminate a contract, and then it takes 60 days to find somebody else, it really puts the county in a very, very bad situation with regard to public safety. I say all that to say this. I think more conversations need to be had and the stakeholders need to be brought together in meetings. Was trying to do it. I was meeting with court services the first part of this year and team and people that are in this space to understand what everybody's doing and what defendants who are released on pretrial need to go to what agencies. So those discussions can easily be had, but these are some things that absolutely terms and conditions of what this agreement is going to be need to be in place clearly so everybody understands what's going to happen, what the expectation is for a team that's going to be taking on this responsibility if that's what the commissioners decide. So with that, I don't have, I mean, like I said, it's not my lane to tell you what I think has to happen. They provide a critical role. The supervision is critical for people that need to have somebody watching them and making sure they're going to their drug treatment or going to their mental health provider. It's a critical piece.
And of course, in our conversations, well, let's just say we don't have any reason to believe team wouldn't cooperate with law enforcement. And certainly if it was in a contractual obligation, they would be required to do so.
That's true.
And I've talked with Chris, if you haven't, and he's fully prepared, and he's going to, I'm sure, speak on this to do just what we've been doing already. And that was the whole purpose of this agenda item, is to establish a transition team, if you will, if we were going to move in that direction to talk about it, instead of just slamming it on and just doing it without having conversation from stakeholders. So that's what my intent was behind this item. We also have discussed those issues that you brought and you believed. I've talked with the chief of police, I've talked with the sheriff, and they believe as long as those things were contractually included, that they, would probably be fine. They just wanted to make sure those assurances were included, and I've shared that with you.
Yeah, and that's been my conversation with Mr. Steele as well, is his commitment to make sure reporting happens. I haven't talked to him about this, what I call this law enforcement function, this location piece, because I wasn't aware of it until last night, but I have no reason to believe that they wouldn't abide by that if that's the part of the conditions, terms and conditions of the contract.
Certainly.
Do you have an opinion? And I've never asked you this before, so you may need some time to think about it. Is this considered a professional service where we don't have to put out an RFP?
Oh, you're asking the wrong person about that. I think
Okay.
I don't know. If
Aaron's in the back there, but we don't even currently have an MOU.
Right. We have never contracted this service out before. So
that's true.
my question is, can we contract directly with team without making it available to other agencies to bid on? And that's maybe an Aaron question.
I don't know the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Steele, would you care to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, appreciate the opportunity to stand before you today and have this conversation. First of all, I want to be very clear. Team's pretrial release initiative supervises individuals on ankle monitors. And before we put an ankle monitor on anyone, they have to sign an agreement, and they know that we will communicate with law enforcement anytime law enforcement contacts us or anytime that they're out of compliance with the terms of that condition. That is currently happening. Team service model is this, and I just want to be very clear. If we're given the opportunity to work with court services and the incredible staff who may want to come over and be a part of our organization in providing these services, our service model combines the supervision, the accountability with case management. So we're not only holding people accountable to the conditions that they must abide by, we are also connecting those individuals with the services in the community that will allow them to be successful. I think I've shared with all of you our annual report, and last year we supervised over 1,234 individuals in our pretrial release initiative. We had a failure to comply rate of 2.75. It's pretty good. We had a failure to appear rate of 12%. That's something that's still pretty good, but that's something that we're constantly trying to improve. In my conversations with Ms. Bahana on the law enforcement piece, we are so happy to work with whoever we need to. Maybe those positions are housed within the district attorney's office. Maybe those positions are housed within the sheriff's office, wherever they need to be housed. This is about a community collaboration that will allow people to be successful as they navigate through the criminal legal system in our community. We've been doing this service in this space now since 2017. And we feel really good and optimistic and grateful for the opportunity to continue to not only hold people accountable, but to also make sure that they're connected with the resources that they need to be connected with within our community to be successful. At the end of the day, I would say that the people who are released on our bond are ultimately without excuse because we've connected them with housing, we've connected them with mental health treatment, we've connected them with employment services and transportation and whatever they need to do to help navigate all those barriers in order to be able to satisfy. And at the end of the day, that's what creates community safety in our worldview. Happy to answer any questions.
What allows you to operate the way that you're currently operating? Who do you have an MOU with? Who do you have an agreement with? What allows you to do essentially a county function? And then what's wrong with the function the way it is now? Why aren't we wanting to replace what's working really well? I mean, last time I checked, the almost 20 years that I've been here, we haven't let people out that are a danger to society. You've been in the news twice in the past 2 weeks, one for a Lyft driver and one for a murder.
I can tell you in both cases, and I'm happy to talk about this, and I'm also happy to provide the documentation. We filed the report in the situation. There was a warrant released before either incident occurred. We have all the documentation. We fulfilled our duties in providing supervision, and we reported to the powers that be in both cases when the individual was non-compliant with the terms of those conditions. But to answer your question, and I appreciate the question, and the origin of TEAM's pretrial release initiative. I guess it was in 2017, 2016, 2017, when the federal government sent a letter to the county indicating that they were going to consider taking over the Oklahoma County Detention Center because of overcrowding, human rights violations, the whole 9 yards. There was a committee that was formed. Mr. Bennett chaired that committee to try to see what we could do. It's the origin of CJAC. The committee contracted with the Vera Institute. The Vera Institute came down, you're very familiar with this, and they conducted a 6-week study. You have the report, it's also on the Oklahoma City Chamber's website. And in that report, what the Vera Institute found is that approximately 83% of everyone who was being held in the Oklahoma County Detention Center were had not been found guilty of anything. They were being held primarily because they could not afford to pay their bond. You've read the report. They also indicated that at that point in time, 64% of those who were being held pre-trial were being held on a misdemeanor. That's what was happening in 2016, 2017. That's when TEAM signed an MOU with the Oklahoma County Public Defender's Office, Mr. Bob Ravitz. I'm happy to provide the copy of the MOU to start a process of helping get individuals out of county jail who were simply stuck there because they could not afford to pay their bond. And we started doing that in 2017, 2018. And we provided case management support. We provided supervision in the whole 9 yards. And the program has continued to grow to a point that we've added ankle monitoring and we've increased communication and we've improved our outcomes every year since.
So the individuals that you're assisting to leave the Oklahoma County Jail are people that have typically been denied by our court services department because they've been deemed either a flight risk or a danger to society, and they take them to judges and judges deny them. Our court services doesn't deny anybody. They don't approve anybody. The judges are the ones that do that.
Same for us.
We go to criminal judges. Do you go to criminal judges? Or
Did
you go to a civil judge?
We work with any judge that has the authority to release a person to a pretrial release initiative. And to your point, we don't get to decide who gets out either. We review cases. We make the leaders within the criminal legal space aware of the situations. The powers that be, the judges, the attorneys review those cases, and they make the determination whether or not to release a person to our service model.
Would you say that you use one judge primarily more than all the others?
We work with any and all judges.
So would it surprise you to learn that you use one judge over and over, that is not a criminal judge?
Commissioner,
making decisions about
we
criminals?
we work with any judge in the Oklahoma County district district court system who has authority to make these releases, that wants to be a part of the solution and safely and responsibly reducing our jail population. We've gone from, 2,634 was the average daily population in the Oklahoma County Jail in 2016 to like just over 1,200 today. And I think primarily because of your leadership and the leadership of this commission, we're seeing improvements in the way that individuals who have to be detained in the jail are treated and are respected and ultimately are provided proper supervision.
I get the Bureau report. That was 2017. That was 7 years ago. There's been lots of changes. We've done
Sure.
a lot of things differently. A lot of things are being done differently, and they're being
Yes,
done
sir.
better.
Yes, sir.
What's the need for the change?
I believe it's a matter of efficiency. We're very excited to work with the county in this regard. As you know, we also work with the county in administering the community sentencing program that the county has. We've done that for almost 8 years now, and we're seeing tremendous results, tremendous compliance rates, success rates, in the whole 9 yards. We want to have this opportunity because it's not just about holding people accountable, which is the primary responsibility of supervision, but it's also what team brings in the case management model to connect individuals in our community who need help with proper services so that they can break out of a cycle of involvement with the criminal legal system. We want to be able to add our case management service model in this space and create efficiencies. And we think that we can also provide the contract and the services for less money and produce better outcomes statistically.
So ultimately, our court services isn't doing what you could do better?
I think I believe in our service model. I also appreciate, and I want to be very clear, and I want to say this publicly, if we're given the opportunity to have this contract and to provide the supervision for conditional bonds in Oklahoma County and create this efficiency, we want to be able to work with the men and women who currently work at court services who would like to come and work in our service model of adding case management, just so that we can all work together to achieve the best possible results.
I think this is one of those relationships that should be a symbiotic relationship. I think this is a spot that the government definitely should be in, and not privatizing this piece and giving it to you. I think you're providing a great service for what you're doing, but you're symbiotic to what we're already doing and have been doing since about 2000. So we were one of the first in the state. I think you may have been at the legislature when this got approved for us to be able to do these things.
Sure.
So we've done this. We've done this well. We've been doing it well. We're going to continue to do it well if I have anything to say about it. The chiefs of police, I've received phone calls from JD. I've received phone calls from Worley. They're much different than what the phone calls evidently you had. They're strongly against this. I mean, they didn't pull zero punches with me. They said we were against this. This is soft on crime. If you do something
Totally.
like this, it's a bad idea. And I've talked with judges. I've got judges that are upset with what this just being on the agenda, that they haven't been consulted with. If we are to continue this discussion, I hope that the other commissioners would be willing to send this discussion to policy and governance and start talking about it extensively, because I think this is a half-baked idea as the way it sits right now. I understand that you're, the reason for you putting this on there was to have these discussions. And I think a lot of the stakeholders haven't even been brought into the table about the way that this could possibly work.
Well, if I might interject, this is transparency.
Yeah.
Cooking this stuff up in the back rooms and then just bringing out some document and slamming it on the horseshoe is not transparent. We want to have this discussion. It's been kicked around between our 3 offices and our staffs for some time. And I wanted to bring it out forward, put it on here, have this so that we can do this. I've talked to those people until 9 o'clock last night myself, including after my last conversation with the DA in the evening, and I answered their questions. Their judgment probably is to be decided in the final contract, which I've told each of them I would want to have them involved in this conversation if we draw it up. Most of them were comforted to know that the DA, of course, as our lawyer, would be drafting this agreement if it were to come to fruition. And that those details that they were concerned about, they felt confident her being the guardian of watching those issues that they are concerned with. So that's the intent behind this item, and there's no half-baked anything. This is just a matter of bringing out a discussion point and expand upon it from there, and having these conversations that I'm sure we're about to have from citizens who want to speak, and then get their input and make sure there's something that isn't unforeseen.
Mr. Chair, could I just very quickly, and Commissioner Davidson, I appreciate this conversation more than you know. I hope that after the vote today, if it goes favorably, that we can continue this level of conversation and bring in whomever we need to bring in. We're not trying to hide anything. We're not trying to force anything. We're just trying to be deliberate in trying to figure out what's going to be the most effective and the most efficient delivery of services in our community. And again, I would respectfully disagree with the assessment of law enforcement. Just because our service model allows us to connect a person who needs help with the help that they need in the community doesn't mean that's soft on crime. That's a very humanitarian thing to do. And at the end of the day, our results, our data would bear out that it's a pretty effective service model. So again, I would submit that it's actually a higher level of accountability when we're not only telling a person what they have to do as far as conditions, but then we're also providing a pathway for them to be able to satisfy those conditions. At the end of the day, that's how we help a person become their best self.
And furthermore, I was on the transition of the community sentencing program to you, which every member of the board, including those who weren't necessarily in favor of that at the time, have come around to believing that it was a good, successful move, and no one talks about revoking it unless that's what you're suggesting with saying that we do a good job and it ought to be here because it's government's role.
It's state's role on that issue.
But it's all the same.
We've got zero say in what we could actually do with that, but, and that was one
Well,
of the
that
big
wasn't
reasons
true. We transferred it.
we had to. If you remember correctly, the DA actually told us that we had to transfer that. There wasn't a question of us having that. That is a state function and a state role.
And it was very similar conversation. Change is hard. I get it. I mean, change at any level is going to be met with some resistance, but it's the similar conversations. Could team provide the accurate accountability? Could we actually hold people accountable? We have, and we do, and we will continue in that regard.
You have some.
Before we bring up the citizens to speak, I'm curious if Ms. Biffle has any opinions about this, or our interim public defender. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
And real quick, before she speaks, just in front of her, I know one of the issues was of concern that OLETs would be retained and run by law enforcement. And Ms. Bahana, you can just nod from where you are. You agreed to me to, if employees who do that function could be transferred to your office for your supervision to perform that task should this happen. So the sanctity of that would be kept in law enforcement. Okay, go ahead.
I believe when court services was started, there was absolutely a need for court services. Since then, I believe a lot of individuals have been transformed. We are seeing more individuals with high needs. I'm going to echo what Chris Steele said about individuals with mental health issues, individuals with drug issues, individuals with housing issues. So especially for indigent defendants, if they get out through court services and they're on their program, an individual simply has to report. A lot of indigent individuals who are getting out need more services. So whereas that individual wouldn't necessarily be able to report on their own, they're getting housing through team, they're getting transportation. We have those individuals picked up at the jail, so they're actually able to make it to their case manager team. And I think with criminal justice reform, this has evolved because we don't want those individuals to get out and be given a chance and just go right back in. Team has the mechanisms where if an individual has a positive UA, they can step them up on supervision. They can connect them with classes, AA meetings, NA meetings, and do the things that they actually need. And I think that helps them get off the streets. And so I think that's very important because for law enforcement, rather than just having someone report, they can actually get them to stop reoffending. I think just reporting, a lot of these individuals will reoffend. And so I think team, again, to echo what Chris said, it actually gives the individual more ability to stay out of the system and actually help them. And so I think it's kind of evolved into this system where we need more, especially for indigent defendants.
Thank you.
Questions of her?
Well, not any questions for her. I'm kind of curious, Robin, Kathy, Grant, you guys provide the same service, right? We connect people to AA, we monitor, we do NA, we do all the same, right?
Correct. And I don't know if everyone's aware, we have social services in our office. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they're embedded in our office. The defendant comes in and has any needs, they're immediately taken to that person, to our social services. If it's Tuesday or Thursday, their office is one floor down, we walk them down. We have the same opportunities. We do the same thing. If they have a positive UA, we can step up and have them begin those same services.
And just in practice, what I've seen a lot is I've often had individuals on court services through conditional bond get violation reports and be put back in. Team has just kind of changed the game, and again, they have a shuttle, they pick people up, they transport them there, and so they're able to get them housing right there, right then throughout the week. And so that's been a huge deal. Them having bus passes, those things, and so the services are all in-house right there, available to them at any time. And they also have contracts with catalysts in different places to get them inpatient treatment. It is often where someone isn't approved for team until they get them a bed. So sometimes that individual stays at the jail until they have a bed inpatient treatment because a lot of these individuals need more supervision, and I just feel like team offers that.
You offer that. You transportation and all that. Sheriff's office provides transport. Okay. Robin, you signed up to speak. You want to speak?
Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I just want to reiterate that we have employees that have been here 24 years. I'm in my 20th year. We have one that started yesterday. I believe that we have the highest standard in our office, and our main goal is public safety and are they going to return to court. We've implemented new programs where we can continue the communications with our defendants more often. That has helped tremendously. We have, like I stated earlier, social services. We have weekly contact with the defendants. I think in my 20 years, I've been a supervisor for the last 12. I have not received one complaint from the judicial system, the DA's office, or the public defender's office. I think we have a professional group that is very caring and wants to see the same results at the end of the day that the other program wants to see. So I appreciate your time, and I just want you to know that we appreciate you guys, and we wouldn't have been here 20 years and 24 years if we didn't feel like that this was a commitment that needed to be made. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Williams.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Jessica Williams, and I kind of wrote my statement down just so I can stay within my time frame. So I would just like to say that Team is a private business that upon initial expansion into pretrial release services was intended to serve low-level, first-time indigent offenders, people who pose a minimal risk to the general public. Excuse me. Team has been operating outside of that description for quite a while now. They have been running unchecked and without any accountability, responsibility, or liability. Team is not prepared or capable of dealing with violent offenders or repeat career offenders. They do not have the ability to go after and apprehend absconders or defendants who commit crimes while under their supervision. They do not even have the authority or capability to revoke a release in real time. Furthermore, Team is failing more often than it is succeeding in its current capacity. They are ineffective at ensuring compliance with court orders. They are ineffective at ensuring appearance in court. They are ineffective at preventing future crimes from being committed by the defendants in their programs. They do not even act sensibly in dealing with defendants who have proven time and time again that they have no respect for the court. They simply facilitate the revolving door without concern for victims' safety or public safety. Turning over all court programs to Team is irresponsible, and again, it poses a major threat to the safety of the public. A private company ran by convicted felons, not even low-level offenders. I'm talking about murderers, rapists, people who have aided and abetted fugitives. The list goes on. A company like this has no business taking over court services at all. The fact that expanding this company and handing over court services to them is even up for discussion here today is shocking, alarming, and irresponsible. What responsible and reasonable ethical body would consider such a thing? I ask that the sensible members of this board will see the danger, recognize the conflict, and foresee the inevitable consequences of such an action and vote no on this measure.
Carol Knight.
Good morning. I brought you some thoughts from the standard conditions by the Administrative Office of the United States Courts, Probation and Pretrial Services Office. And they recommend that each district court issues the same standards that the federal system has in not only probation, but also pretrial services. One of the standard conditions, you must not communicate or interact with someone you know is engaged in criminal activity. If you know someone has been convicted of a felony, you must not knowingly communicate or interact with that person without first getting permission of the probation officer. Now, if the probation officer is at Team and they're asking for permission, it's really interesting because I want to tell, now, and this is just what we found online. Employees of Team. Stephanie Ringwald, the Executive Assistant and Community Sentencing Intake Specialist, a convicted felon of rape by a teacher. The victim was a student. She's a lifetime registered sex offender. Kenny Billieu, pretrial case manager. Assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, drugs, weapons, running from the police. Gina Ritchie, reentry case manager. Distribution of CDS, possession of drugs, and forgery. Cheryl Williamson, peer recovery support specialist and coordinator. Harboring a fugitive, murder in the first degree, murdering her husband. Richard Giles, transportation and management maintenance expert, convicted felon for carrying firearms. Quinto Ackerson, peer recovery support specialist, distribution of drugs, DUI, eluding police, attempting to escape from the penitentiary and stolen property. Dustin Odell, peer recovery support specialist and co-op navigator. Drugs, burglary, child abuse. Daryl Quirk, false personation, felon in possession of a firearm, stolen property. He was monitoring defendants on GPS while currently on probation and had cost warrants in multiple counties. John Derby, UA technician, multiple counts and charges of domestic abuse, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. Aaron Kosar did life in prison for murder.
Are you done?
And so my point is that if you want a difference between conditional bond personnel and team, there are no convicted felons in this group. If you're talking about bondsmen, there are no convicted felons in bondsmen's group either. And yes, I'm done. Thank you.
I am so angry, I am shaking. What about second chances?
Oh, I believe.
What about helping people? I am shocked that you would use your time to stand up here and degrade employees of team who are trying to help people. I might have to step out because of how angry I am right now. Every single one of those people has probably served their time, and Mr. Steele can speak to their work at team. Second, third, fourth chances is what we are all about, and helping support people. And some of those people you listed are sitting in the room.
That's fine.
Okay.
Are we through? My time is up. Thank you so much.
Nicole Jackson.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm Nicole Jackson, and and my staff is coming up because we've spoken and heard the piece of court services as it pertains to pretrial and conditional bond. I am the community service supervisor as well as Shine, and so I wanted to speak on behalf of us. And we all are a family, and so I just wanted to speak because we enjoy our job. Shine, we took over last February. We feel like it's doing great. We have a full staff. And so it has been an excellent opportunity to serve our community in helping keeping it clean. As it regards to community service, I've been in that position. I believe this is my third year, and I've learned a lot. It has been enlightening. Grant has been really hands-on, really present, and really approachable. And so we have been successful, I feel like. We are a team. We work together. We help our staff. We help our participants in any way we can. We try to assist them even when they show up with their paperwork incomplete that has been filed into the court clerk's office, still allowing them to sign up for the community service and do the service to their community. So I just wanted you to see our face and to know that we are glad to be here and glad to serve. I myself have served Oklahoma County for 17 years. I worked previously in the sheriff's office as a detention sergeant before moving to pretrial. I was a case manager for 4 years before moving to community service. So I just wanted my voice to be heard and our faces to be seen. Thank you.
Victor?
Good morning. I don't have much to say. I just learned about this yesterday. I didn't know this was coming, and I love my job. I've been here for almost 5 years. I love helping people, accountability, public safety, and I'm just like shocked about all this situation being here. I guess I don't know where all this is coming from. I don't know if we can coexist or still keep us around. I'm not fully vested yet, which is the employee side. I don't know if anyone's seeing us. Like my coworker's having a baby in July. Is he gonna lose his benefits? Like we're not looking at the employees right now, or I don't know. I just have questions like, is there gonna be a vote on this today, or is there? I don't know. There's more questions than anything else right now.
Were you here when I explained the history of this agenda item a while ago? Did you just walk in the room?
Oh, no. I was here. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah, we covered it.
Okay.
All right, you'll see here in a second.
All right.
Anything else?
That's all.
All right, Jess?
Morning, Commissioners, and thank you, Commissioner Bloomer, for your remarks. I was appalled by that. I wasn't going to speak, but I think we need to get some more context. Number one, bond in Oklahoma County is unfortunately probably unconstitutionally used. And it should mirror the federal model where bond is simply denied by court judges if someone is a danger to the community. But we never see Brill hearings or hearings for some reason on people who the judge brings in and the DA says is, too dangerous to get a bond. Instead, we just see super high bonds well beyond our bond schedule. So when we talk about people being released that are a danger to the community, that's a judicial area. Like team court services are below that. So this notion that there's a responsibility of to the extent that anybody, a judge, DA, anybody can know someone is a danger to the community, that burden is not on these programs. Number two, it's about services when you talk about public safety, not incarceration, unless you're talking about that exceptional, dangerous person. So if you're talking about community services, nobody is doing that better in this county than team and has been for the last 7 years. They have had a transformational impact. And nobody can provide services to people trapped in the criminal legal system better than somebody who's been trapped in the criminal legal system and got out of it. Those are tough odds to face. Very tough odds for marginalized groups. So all of the attacks that were just levied against those good people should be seen as credentials for team to continue doing really good work. I work with team on a daily basis. They are great. They're always in court talking to criminal judges about the conditions on bond, ensuring that all the needs of this individual is going to be met. Those conversations wouldn't even be happening if we were talking about this person is determined to be a danger to society. So I think the conversation got a little off tilt there. And this is about who provides the best community sentencing services. And it is, in my experience, unquestionably team. The reason we are here today is the inadequacy of court services to meet the needs of clients. The suggestion that the sheriff is providing transportation, I think, considering all the conversations and other venues we had about sheriff providing transportation, kind of demonstrates the gaps we're looking at here. Thank you.
Okay, Jamie, were you trying to get my attention to speak? I wasn't sure. Okay, any others to speak? Grant?
Good morning. I would be remiss if I didn't make a few comments. So yeah, I was kind of to echo what Victor says. Myself, I was shocked to learn about an agenda item yesterday morning. I wasn't advised in any fashion, so I was a little thrown off to learn about this yesterday morning. I also hope
You haven't been involved in conversations with any commissioner's office about this?
that there was going to be
Or
an
a
agenda
DA?
item. No,
Yeah, about this conversation?
no, I've heard.
You've never been,
If
you're
you'd give me a
saying,
second, I'd be happy to answer you.
well, I'm just wanting to know how much you're gonna lie in front of everybody.
Why don't, go ahead, Mr. Billingsley.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't go just one way, Grant. You're gonna go around here and talk about me. I'm gonna make sure that it's pointed out. You've been attempted to be called. You have engaged in conversations with members of different staff
Feels a
and the
little
DA.
personal. It feels a little personal.
Well, you can feel personal.
Commissioner, and that is of deep concern that potentially some of this could be personal because you seem very upset and very angry.
Well, I think
I'm
that
not-
you're lying here in front of everybody is upsetting.
I haven't even made a comment yet. To
Well, you just made a comment saying that you didn't know about it.
I've heard lots of rumors. I've heard lots of rumors that there's talk about some sort of change or amendment to the way pretrial release works. Have I been advised by anybody that this agenda item was going to be on for today, or there was something that was absolutely happening? Absolutely not. Commissioner Bloomer, I have not had one face-to-face conversation with you over this at all. I would hope after what I've heard today, we could pump the brakes for a second, at least a week. Commissioner, I'll come right up right after this meeting. I'd love to have a face-to-face meeting with you. A lot of times it appears as though the public and unfortunately maybe you yourself don't really know what we do. Maybe you don't really know all the services that we do provide. We're not here to, why would we be here to help lower the jail population and help people get to court and make sure they're good citizens, but fight to send them back to jail. We wouldn't do that. I think statistically there was one, maybe two a month that actually get a violation report from us where a warrant is issued. It's extremely rare. We're not in the business to to raise the jail population. That's ludicrous. That makes no sense. I've been in this position for 14 years. In those 14 years, I've received nothing but exceeds expectations with everything we do. But the only reason why I receive that is because of the people here. I'm only as good as they are, and these people are stellar. When you look at the supervision and you look at the extremely low number of people that fail to appear, the extremely low number of people that pick up new charges, it's because of them. It's because they care about these people. They do. It's I don't want there to be a misconception that they don't. They care about the people that they supervise. And I've tried. I'll tell you guys now. I've tried for several years to work with team, to work with Diversion Hub to provide even more services. It's fallen on deaf ears. We haven't been involved in that, but yes, I've had some disturbing conversations within the last 24 hours that people have come to me, key stakeholders in the criminal justice system. I didn't reach out to them, they reached out to me. They do have grave concerns about public safety because they know of our supervision. Depending on what happens, I'm happy to help the other programs with any sort of training or any other help that we could help them on how to supervise, and how to keep people out of trouble, and how to help them, make sure they go to court. So those rates aren't so high for those groups. As far as the jail population, yes, back in late 2016, 2017, when Vera was here and they were doing their research, prior to team starting, we were finally utilized for what we were. And we went from, releasing 100 or so a month to almost overnight, almost 300. That's what we did. And we did that within a handful of months. And after those handful of months were over, we went from a jail population of, and someone in the room can help me, I think it was upwards to over 2,500 people. And we cut that down to 1,600, 1,700, and it's gone even lower from there. But I'm not saying we did that personally by ourselves, and we were the one person that did that. Of course, there's a lot of key stakeholders involved in that, but we were the ones here that did that, and it shows our commitment to ensuring, the balancing public safety with the jail population. So my suggestion would be, at a minimum, I would think you would want to have a face-to-face meeting with me to discuss some of the things we do and how we do things and why we do things, because maybe you don't know. So Commissioner Bloomer, I'd love to meet with you after. Also, the urgency of throwing an agenda item on, well, I had no knowledge of it. I mean, zero knowledge of it. And I had to have the extremely unfortunate conversation with my staff yesterday, because I didn't want them to do what I did and Google Oklahoma County agendas and see an agenda item on there without me having that opportunity to discuss with them. So I had that tough conversation. It's very disheartening. But yes, I'd love to have face-to-face meetings with all three of you to discuss what we do and why there's a huge necessity for us. And I'd also encourage you to meet with some of the criminal judges. Most of them, not one, not two. A lot of the criminal judges, meet with the presiding judge, meet with local law enforcement, meet with several people to come up with an answer, because this has a huge magnitude. This isn't just, let's flip a coin and let's do something. We want criminal justice reform, but we also want smart criminal justice reform. And we're here to help, and we're happy to collaborate with groups. We're happy to work with other groups. But if you push us out and don't give us the opportunity on something that this department's been around, I think, since the 80s, and has grown and grown and grown wouldn't be right. And over the 14 years that I've been here and reporting to the advisory board, not one time has a member added an agenda item. I have. I've added several agenda items, and when I do add agenda items, we grow. And when we grow, we are able to release more people from jail. And when we release more people from jail, we provide more services. And I've continued to add those agenda items, and we've gotten better and better, and we've grown and grown. So I would love to meet with each of you face to face. Commissioner Mon, I know you're extremely upset, and I know you're pretty angry at me right now. I'm not sure why or what it stems from, but maybe you and I could sit down and have a one-on-one and have a conversation and try to figure things out and make things better between the two of us. If you'd be willing to do that, I'd be happy to meet after this meeting. Otherwise, that would be my suggestion for today, if you're willing to do so.
Okay, anything else?
Unless there's any questions.
No questions. Again, I think they both do great work. This needs to be a symbiotic relationship, in my opinion, as the way I see it now. Somebody may be able to change that, but they both do great work. I think Speaker Steele, without, nobody can question what he's done. He did it at the state legislature through adding people. Correct me if I'm wrong, you added people to the offenders list that were available to be ankle monitored. He's continuously led the way in conservative circles for criminal justice reform. One of the reasons that I think we're going to need both is that as it sits right now, 780 is being tinkered with, which was the moving a bunch of the drug offenders to misdemeanors. I think that the legislature is probably going to flip that back. If they do, we're going to need all hands on deck and as much help as we could possibly get, keeping our low rate that we're in currently over there. And I think it's going to take a team effort amongst both our court services and team. And I think there's things that we can start working together better. And I think that there's things that we could do better from government side. And I think there's things that we can do better probably from team side, but that's going to need a collaboration between the two. And it's going to need us to start working together instead of working against each other, if that has been what's happening. And I haven't dug into it enough to know that the entire history and what's going on with this. So I know just enough to be dangerous at this point. I'd like to sit down with a bunch of the stakeholders, and that's my understanding with your putting this on here. To be clear, it wasn't one, there's not any action really that can be taken on this agenda item. So nobody's going anywhere. There's nothing here that can be done. Commissioner Millan was attempting to have a conversation, and that's what we're doing, is having a conversation. It is absolutely transparent, just like you said. This welcome to making sausage. But we do need to sit down and talk with the stakeholders. We've got these committees that are designed to do this for community sentencing, for drug courts, for veterans courts, and they don't meet very often because they have difficulty getting a quorum, is my understanding. So you'll get 4 or 5 of them, or 3 or 4 of them there, but they don't have enough for a quorum for these things. So
We've had one no quorum meeting in the
This
past year. Yeah,
that's good.
but to your point, it's a rotating around, but they're advisory.
Yes, they are.
They don't have the authority. They always kick back and say, well, it's up to the commission, and we can't have a conversation because without putting it on the agenda in front of God and everybody, you can't discuss this. So that's what the purpose of this was for. And I can put it on those agendas, and you can have advisory people give you their
But I think
advisory recommendation.
Yeah.
And I think we've had those individual conversations. You, as your chair, you know, I liaison for those, but part of the difficulty with any time we're a liaison, can't come back here and talk about it unless you put it on as an agenda item. So that's what the purpose is for.
Yep.
Is it more appropriate to send this to policy and governance, or is it more appropriate to send it to court services advisory board?
Honestly, I think everybody should be talking about it. That's part of the stakeholders, and it doesn't. To me, I think court services advisory board probably ought to get together their thoughts on this situation and then make recommendations to us, and then same thing with policy and governance.
And
Maybe they can all meet together. I mean,
And, you know, I'm hesitant to invoke the name of someone deceased, but Bob Ravitz was our chair and he was leading these conversations. I thought he had had one with each of you.
did he? Not that I'm not saying that he didn't. He very well.
And he was in the process of trying to work on that. I think Bridget here can attest to that. I know Mr. Steele had conversations with him about it. So I'm not trying to have a deceased person endorse something and not be here to speak for himself, but he was the chair of this committee that you're referring to, and we were having these conversations. That's what I mean by this has been dating back to the fall. So I'm happy with sending it anywhere for, again, this was for discussion and to talk about stakeholders getting together. Ms. Bahana.
If I could just make a recommendation, because what's important in these discussions is the people not, I'm not trying to say anything about the committees that are already set up, but there are people that are actually working in this space. I have convened meetings in my office with Grant about what they do, trying to understand what court services does. I had a meeting scheduled with Chris and Jamie today to understand what they can do. So what I would suggest is if you would allow me and Bridget to convene a group of people, and I'm talking about law enforcement, everybody's going to be a part of it, team, court services, let us get everybody together. Let us see who's providing what services and what piece, and then maybe make a recommendation if you will allow us to do that. If you want it to do to the policy and governance board, we can do that. But if you will allow me, let us take the lead on this and trying to bring the people together and understand we can write terms and conditions so that at least we can lay out the whole landscape for you so we can make educated decisions about what's happening.
love it. Love your volunteerism. I was going to, as you were speaking, I'm like, it sounds to me like you're volunteering. So that's great. I would.
Thank you, Vicki.
That's wonderful. If that's your motion, I'll second it.
Okay, well, I think the clarification needed in that is, where would you have a report back to us or to the P&G?
I think she can come right back here.
That's what it would seem like would make the most sense to me. I agree with that. She's talking to the people who work in that space. No disrespect to our chiefs, but I've readily told everybody it's not my wheelhouse to know individual legal and lingo terms. So I appreciate your volunteerism, Ms. Bahana and Ms. Biffle. I assume you're agreeable. Okay. Is that a motion?
I'll move that we send this item for discussion and possible recommendations from a group led by Ms. Bahena and Ms. Biffle.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you to everybody whose time today. Item 40, the BOK Financial Securities Engagement Letter for our financial advisor. This is something we've gone back and forth about quite a bit, and we finally have our agreement. Is there any discussions? We lost our last financial advisor due to retirement, so.
So this is just the agreement with BOK being the financial advisor.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for the bonds or for it's for the bonds, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That, by the way, I think we said this before when we picked them. This was just us to get the actual contract when we selected them before, so that we would know to get the contract. This was recommended to us by Jared Davidson and John Michael Williams and others that we sought and solicited because there were multiple ones that qualified. So we went with their recommendation. And item 41 is another one.
Just an account.
Mhm.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
District 3.
This is, this is for Colton. Colton, you want to come up here and explain this item? No. This is to declare April 30th as National Therapy Animal Day in Oklahoma County. It's just a resolution declaring that date. So, Carrie, I know your love of animals.
Do you have a therapy dog? Or
Every dog's a therapy
every dog is a therapy
They
dog.
just-
Let me clarify that. This is fun. I'm happy to move this item.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have a professional services agreement with the assessor.
Let me get there. Get back in.
Yeah, Mike, okay, I was looking for you. There you go.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, it's a standard renewal for a contract for our vendor that provides our online filing services, just appraised.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
44. You want to do, is that same? It's just a companion item?
Same, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item 45. Mr. Wilkerson, do you care to say anything?
Good morning. Number 45 is just a regular renewal with Connect benefits for our health plan for the provider network. There are no changes, no cost increases. Everything remains the same as it was last fiscal year.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
UMR.
Sure. UMR, as a reminder, this was heard at the budget board last week. UMR replaces HealthSmart. This is for our TPA services on the health plan. No increases in cost for next fiscal year.
This is the company that bought HealthSmart.
Correct.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
County clerk.
This item is regarding your purchase card pilot program. I received a request from Law Library to bring before you a consideration for a couple more authorized purchases. Right now, the pilot program is designed where you all approve what can be used by the P card or not. Initially, these did go to policy and governance due to some time constraints. It came right before you. That's the pleasure of the board. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. The two items we're discussing today is the purchase of books and educational materials, certain books that are only able to be purchased by a credit card, whether they're online. And Vanita can speak to that a little bit if you have more questions. And also another item is she has a public use for the public use by the public copier in her law library. And to use that copier, you have cards that they can upload money to. The purchase of those cards now can only be purchased by using a credit card. So that's where this item comes from in that situation. And I think we can answer any questions on those items if you have.
I talked to Vanita yesterday. I don't know if y'all had the chance to talk, but
I think it's a novel concept that the law library be allowed to buy books with credit cards. So
That's the first part of this item. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vanita.
And it's a California vendor. It's NOLO, if you guys are familiar with
Okay.
NOLO publications. And they require us to do it with credit card.
Okay.
So Department of Libraries, everybody's having to do it. And then we have a copy card service. You can purchase these cards. There's an attorney copier in the back or section that's used. Thank you so much. That, and we copy them and we reprogram them and clean them, but they're to their end. So we just need to purchase some more.
Okay.
And the only way we can do that is with a card. So.
no. Okay, that's why I gave you the puzzled look about the cards. I was like, why are we buying cards for people? yeah, that makes sense now. Perfect, thank you. Appreciate that.
It's a method for people to use the copier. The second part of this item, MIS did have a request to increase their card limit. They were the lowest authorized amount at 1,000, and so they came and asked to raise it to the standard, which is 5,000. So those are the two parts of this item.
Okay. I'll move approval.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chantel, if you can wait for one item under new business here when we get to it, just for the clerk's office. Okay. Engineering. Yeah, this is a change order with your owner's rep, White and Associates, on an ARPA project, specifically the JJC lobby. If you'll recall, that project goes back several years. We actually had it designed prior to ARPA. So we didn't pay for the architect with ARPA monies. But when construction got here, we needed their services to follow up with RFIs, shop drawings, material approvals, final inspections, that sort of thing. So we're basically hiring them through our owner's rep White to fulfill that important piece of the construction. And the construction is basically over on that project. We're doing final inspections this month. So I'd recommend approval of the change
pretty
order
good.
for $20,000.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
And I'm sorry, Karen, for your wait.
Good morning. We're here to acknowledge the Employee of the Month for April of 2024. Dane, if you'd like to come up and bring your employee.
Good morning. I do, because I don't remember what I wrote. Thank you.
Thank you for waiting.
Absolutely. All right. This month, we would like to nominate Sheena Sanders for Employee of the Month, our web developer. Sheena's been with us full-time now for about 2.5 years, having started out as our contractor to build the current website. Her contributions are seen daily by the county and its constituents. She works extensively with all the offices and departments to make improvements to their pages, and her work product is one of the most visible of anything our department does. We are incredibly proud to nominate Sheena for this year's employee or this month's Employee of the Month.
Yay!
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
They can take your picture sheet.
One, two, three.
Okay, is there anybody here to speak, Eric, on your item? I should have asked before we got to this point, and they've waited.
No.
It's just me. Okay. So this item was brought to the county via Tinker Air Force Base. Apparently, they are required to do inspection of all easements, licenses, and permits they have every year. And so these items, this item and the next two items are easements, property they have. Typically in the past, what Tinker Air Force Base would do, people of their real estate office would go out and do visual inspections themselves. They would complete the forms and upload it to their database. In October of last year, apparently there was a new form, Form 103, that is provided with each one of these agenda items that was required by the United States Air Force to make this a requirement to where it had to be sent to each jurisdiction to where they have real property either in easements, licenses, permits, whatever the case may be, to where they're required to complete this process. And so these particular items that are in front of you are items that have taken place in the past. There's a couple that was done in 2009, one for the Got Gate. There was one along Sooner Road, basically giving the county permission to go out and do necessary maintenance along those locations. And then the last one was actually a property that was acquired back in the 80s, part of the bond issue that was done. And so this is something that is new, but is something that will continue, from my understanding, moving forward as a requirement from the Department of Defense and the United States Air Force. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve items 50, 51, and 52.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for
Thank you,
your
Eric.
discussion. Do you want to talk about 53, Commissioner?
Yeah, this is actually for a generator for the Deer Creek Fire Department, not to exceed $30,947. This is for ARPA funds.
Is
Out
this
of-
still leftover funds from your amount from last year? Oh, okay.
The crazies. I've got a lot more.
Okay. I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's good to know. We'll tell everybody to call you.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner comments, District 1.
Well, I think it's no secret now that I won't tolerate people using their public comment time to just talk poorly of people. I thought that was very inappropriate, and I will probably respond that way every time. So I don't think it's appropriate to use your public comment time to speak to the commissioners to just hold up faces of folks who can't speak for themselves. So.
And I appreciate the discussion on this item. I think there's a lot of questions, and I appreciate you putting it on to discuss these. I want to say publicly thank you to Vicky for putting a group together to discuss this further. And again, as we were sitting here talking, every once in a while I talk to an old Judge Elliott from time to time, and he said that his time with team was outstanding, that they did great work. And if there's somebody that's going to be tough on crime, it's Ray Elliott. I happen to know that he put more people in DOC custody than anybody else in the state. So if he believes that they do good work, then I would be of the same mindset.
Well, since you invoked his name, he was the one fighting and squalling as we were going along and became a slow turnaround. And I reminded him of that recently at a community sensing meeting where we were complimenting the efforts. And I don't remember it exactly that the DA said we had to do that, so I'm going to go back and look at that. But that was a long time ago. I'm just saying, as a rule, it's been a pleasure to work with them and the results. And to your point, Commissioner, about that is their model. They do work with reformed people, and that's who they hire. And we want and work with, and CJAC works with and begs, the Chamber of Commerce begs employers in our community to hire these individuals because we don't want them on the welfare rolls. We don't want them to not be able to contribute to society if they've paid their debt to society and they come back. It's a whole big part of what Shine was about, is to opposed to ever going to jail and ruining their life and getting a chance to go out and give back. And that's a remittance to whatever offense they may have created. And so I appreciate there, and I'm sorry for those who were in the room who got dragged through the mud today.
I'd be remiss to say that it's very rare that I agree with Jess Eddy on anything, but his statement about that, who better to navigate somebody like that? I mean,
He's done it.
it's just, that's an interesting way to put it. So, and again, thank you.
Well, I think these conversations are great and you have them. And for anybody that was calling around to everybody, it was my agenda item on there and I didn't get very many calls, but the ones who did answered. And when they shared they had somebody else call them, I called whoever they said had called them and just was making myself available to answer any concerns they may have. And I felt like I did. They may reserve their right for their original position, but at least they got a chance to visit and discuss those. And I think I flushed out almost any of them's ultimate concerns about just being stand pat against it, but most of them had told me they had visited with you prior to my call. So I think
Calling me and it all started about last night, and they just all of a sudden my phone just started going crazy. So I was telling them that they ought to talk to each other commissioner and see what their thoughts are and express their thoughts to you guys as well. So
We have the chief of staff here for the clerk, and under new business, I just want to give clarity. Our facilities maintenance director was instructed to not enter into a presence, and then I believe your office said that his badge should be activated, and so there's perhaps division here on the commission, and I think that we need to give clarity to our facility staff
What's this about?
about whether or not they're, I think, Jason, do you care to speak to this about you do not wish facility staff to enter in your confines of the clerk's office domain? And is that for indefinite or for a brief period of time?
I'm willing to get you clarification on the precise people and the time frame. I don't have that on me right now.
Okay. Well, the question that I spoke to Chief Deputy Hudson about last night was about whether or not at least custodial staff should go in and empty the trash or whatever. And I advised her that in the event, as we have had happen once before in another department, a custodial staff gets entrapped in a situation and was harmed. If we were not able to respond, that would be a problem. That's an unlikely scenario, but it's happened once. And so I just wanted to advise.
We've had fire, suppression systems go off and flood offices. We've had, I mean, there's an absolute need for our maintenance staff to be able to go into any spot within this building.
Right.
And I don't understand why it was turned off.
I believe the county clerk called Captain Bayston and asked us what the sheriff told me yesterday.
And then when I talked to that was one of the things that I talked to the sheriff about last night. It was like, we've got to have our maintenance staff be able to come into all of the building, have access to all of the building. And they're one of the few that has.
But I think your order was to the sheriff, as I understand it, to have at least Stacy and Keith's badges turned on. And I believe, Joe, you had called Keith and said, on behalf of District 1, don't enter their premises for now. So, well, okay, well, I'm glad you can clarify.
So when I was informed of this yesterday, this is a decision that obviously is one elected official to the sheriff's office. I don't have the authority to say turn a badge on or off. What I didn't want to occur was for Stacy or his staff or Keith or his staff to go into those areas or attempt to go into those areas and wonder why they were denied access.
Right.
So that is the extent of my conversation.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to impugn anything. I just thought that there was perhaps confusion, so.
Mr. Nelson, why would you not want maintenance staff in your area?
He may not be able to answer. I don't know if he's privy to this.
I can get you the information
Okay.
the specifics.
Well, it's part of the building and our maintenance staff manages the entire building, so I don't know.
I know cleaning crew was in last night because you can see that they were in. So I'm not aware that it was.
Did they already go in before we got a chance to stop them, Keith?
I just don't understand why we're keeping
there's no
a
problem with that in the
department out of
cleaning
the
staff.
whole area of the building.
Keith?
Cleaning crews went in before we could alert them not to.
Okay.
We had meetings with our staff yesterday and explained that we're not to enter into the county clerk's locations. That would be the first floor. That would be the bulk of the second floor. That would be also purchasing. We do rounds on every shift. We have 3 shifts, and every shift does a round looking for potential problems. We let contractors in. We help facilitate anything that is being done after hours and during the day. So it's fine. And as long as I can coordinate with someone who's willing to come down here and do those kinds of things, that's perfectly fine with me.
Is there a directive here that we want to give staff? That's.
I mean, so staying off the first floor for maintenance and Stacy, as we're in the middle of a construction project on the first floor, doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Right, it doesn't make sense to me either.
So, I mean, my directive would, to the sheriff, would be to turn their badge access back on. I think it's a really bad idea that
Yeah.
we don't have, I mean, we've got access to the DA's office.
Right.
I mean, if we want to talk about ultra secure and places that we don't want to go.
And the presiding judge of the multi-county grand jury.
Yeah. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to turn these badges.
Ms. Treat, do you care to speak?
Good morning. I'm happy to visit. I would have been happy to visit yesterday. Commissioner Mon, I know I missed your phone call. I did call you back last night. We didn't get a chance to connect. My phone's always available as things come up. Happy to have conversations at any point in time. This is not to offend anyone. We do have badge access for all of our employees, all the elected officials, and whoever you designate, which is usually your deputy or one or two within your office. That is something that I put in place last year. I know there was confusion and maybe unsure as to why we had locked the doors last year. As some of you know, I did have a threat that came to me that was mailed out to family members, and now I can share it because that person was found and locked up. But at the time, it was very confidential, so I could not share why we had locked the doors, but it was for the safety of not only myself, but our employees. I started down the path to go ahead and get the badge access for the door at the end of the hall that goes kind of into the admin space. I also chose to make a change with the lock on the door right where you enter the clerks of the board, because when that was put in, you had to have badge access to exit the space, but not probably enter too, but you had to exit. And so not only was that incredibly inconvenient for our staff, I also thought it could be a fire hazard. I mean, because if you're running out the door, you may not have your badge to get out. So I have been consistently trying to make sure that our staff is safe. I've tried very much so to make sure that our staff could get out whenever they needed if there was a fire, which I know was a concern last year that I did address. I have been talking to Walter in my office as my point person that visits with Basin on who has access and who doesn't. There's a printed list. If you would like a copy of it, happy to provide it.
That's not what.
No, it all goes together.
No, it doesn't.
No, it does, sir. I'd like to finish, please. So Walter, I instructed him to call Basin and send an updated list. And I said, I do not want facilities or engineering to have full badge access. It's same thing I've done before. And we just talk directly to Basin. They're turned on, they're turned off. We try to communicate on a staff level. Yesterday, Walter came to me and said, how do you want to handle the cleaning crew? I said, well, it's very normal for a cleaning crew to be able to enter at all times of the day, often after hours. So the cleaning crew can still have badge access. In talking with Basin, I also understand that there is still key access. So they're not technically locked out of our space. If you have a key, then you can enter into our doors. That has not been changed. We have not changed the locks. So Basin has told me that in any space that we have in this building, there's also a key. So if the badge access doesn't work, you can get in. So technically, they can still enter into the space. So I'm not actually fully kicking anybody out of the space. I do agree maintenance should have access. I do like procedures and process. And I honestly, sometimes we have 4 or 5 people in our office calling facilities, and then a facilities person shows up and they don't know where to go because 4 people have called them. So within my office, I'm trying to get 1 person designated to work with facilities so that we're not wasting people's time. And when a facilities person comes up, they can address everything at one time and then move on. So I'm really looking for safety and efficiency. And I'm so sorry if I have offended Stacy or Keith or anyone else, but you still have access. So happy to discuss. I hope that clears up. I know it's more information than you want, but that's where I'm coming from.
Hey, Keith, do the mag locks work with a key? So the badges are magnetic. And that's how the door, that's the access for the badge. But a key won't turn that off.
I've not tested the keys, but he has told me a couple times, and he reminded Walter that they still have key access, because that was just a point I guess he was making, that you're not locking them totally out of the space. You just can't willy-nilly walk in whenever the heck you want to. You have a purpose to come in. But if it's an emergency, you can still get in. So if that's not the case, I'm happy to put a key in. I'm happy to have a conversation. But I think that this has come out to be a bigger thing and almost made it to be very negative when it's really not. I'm just putting some processes in place.
So part of the thing about the mag locks also, the badge access, is the ability to track people that come in and out when they're there. If something were to happen, we would know that. And I think for security reasons, I think it's very good to have those things in place. So I think the badge access and being able to find out who was where and when, if something were to go missing or broken or something happened to your office, we would know who did it. If we go back to a key, we're actually going back in technology.
Well, I think it's, to me, I'm happy to go test all the doors and everyone can test all their keys. I have not done that. I understand the magnetometer thing, but I also understand that it would make sense that there would be a backup way to get in case technology failed. I also, I appreciate that point, but we have cameras everywhere. So if we're looking to see who's in a space, all you have to do is look at a camera. I have a lot of cameras in our office, a lot of cameras in the hallway. So you can look anytime to see who's in our space and who's not in our space if something goes missing. So I think this is blown a little bit out of proportion. And I'm happy to have a follow-up conversation with Keith and Stacy later this week to discuss the best process. I think their facilities team is great when they come in, but this was something that has been a frustration to me for a while, more kind of within our office and multiple people calling, again, not being efficient. And so we're just trying to get that a little bit more organized, and this goes along with having a process and efficiency and people just not randomly walking in because they have nothing else to do that day.
Okay, but for clarity, no problem with custodial staff going in at nights.
Agree.
And there's no problem with Keith and Stacy having badge access to get in the event of an emergency.
They do not have badge access. They have, if their key works, they can get in that way. If there's an emergency, I really hope that the employee calls 911 because that's the person that's going to save their life. And all of the sheriffs have access, full access. So if I'm dying, I'm going to call the police. I am not going to call a friend.
Right. That's not the type of emergency. It's burst pipes. It's things that happen.
You still have a key, and if there's a burst pipe, then we could have a conversation, someone that can let you in.
Okay. 911 can't get in unless we let them in. So, and call 911.
The sheriffs can't get into the building?
Sheriffs can, but if they're here, they're not here after hours.
Well, maybe that's a good conversation for us to have with the sheriffs.
If this is new business, are we able to take any action?
I was just wanting to give clarification for direction to Stacy and Keith because of these ongoing projects or whatever. And if it was my understanding from the sheriff and from talking to Ms. Hudson last night, you didn't wish to have them in. So if that's not true, I apologize for any miscommunication. But sheriff was confused because he's gotten conflicting directives from various sources, and so I just said, well, today we'll bring it up and clarify under new business.
Yeah, and I'm happy to visit with the sheriff, and I know Baston's been great for Walter to work with, and we can continue to have these conversations. Anything else?
Just to clarify, I asked Basin to turn it back on because Our guys have to have access. I don't believe that they randomly walk through and because they don't have anything else to do. They're always going through everybody's office and they're checking stuff. I mean, mine comes in and there's a valve in my office.
But why can't they go through the front door that's also open during the day? I mean, if we need to have an after hours conversation, sure, we can have that. But during the day, why can they not go through the main front door, check in with Sandra to
You mean this front door right here?
of our office, which our main door, check in with Sandra, who's in that position to visit with everybody. She's supposed to check in. She helps try to streamline things, try to make things efficient. Why can they not do that?
Okay, I understand what you're trying to do now. I understand what you're trying to, you're trying to get everybody to come into one point. I understand what
Right.
you're doing now.
During the day.
I want to streamline communication. So if
Okay.
we want to have an after hours conversation, I'm very open to doing that.
That makes sense. We definitely need after hours access.
In fact, Keith, don't a member of your team go through every single room in both buildings every night for just windows open?
Yeah.
Rounds done properly takes between 4 and 5 hours of facility work.
Yeah.
So we go through every office. That policy was set in place long before.
Well, it's a good policy. It's a good policy to have. We need to know what's going on with the building. I mean, that's your
Being able to
job.
know what's going on with the building, making sure things are taken care of is great. And again, this came up last night. I would have been happy to have a phone call to explain and work this out. I don't necessarily think it needs to be a public conversation, but everything's transparent and happy to have it.
Thank you.
I don't know. Is there action that we can take or do we need to take?
Just it, whatever. Yeah. Okay. Is there a motion to recess into executive session?
Move we recess.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That makes sense.
Okay, you ready to go back?
Hey, when are you knocking doors for Cindy Munson?
Do you want to help?
No. No, I think I'm good.
I'm knocking for Ellen Poggemiller this weekend.
Who?
Ellen Poggemiller. She was originally running for Senate 46 and then House District 88.
Motion to return from executive session.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Sharon, for waiting.
Thank you.
Item 57 is to disclaim subject to any unpaid property taxes, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
58 is the same motion. Is this revenge?
Did
Same
you
motion on 58. Well, there it goes.
second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh. Item
59.
Yep.
You're willing to go to settlement conference?
I'll move we nominate Commissioner Miles Davidson to sit on our behalf at Judicial Settlement Conference. On this matter, I believe the date is May 9th at 1:30 p.m.
Subject. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any other citizens to be heard? Seeing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move we adjourn.
Okay. Second. To adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
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 That's just-
Why must it be so cold?
Yeah, it's freezing
right
in here.
I'm gonna start. Well, I had asked if they could put deflectors up there before, so it just didn't come right down here. Okay. Everybody in?
Oh, shoot.
I'm in.
Okay.
Okay. I'll call it to order. All three trustees are present. The notice of the meeting was properly posted April 23rd. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of April 17?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the claims?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 3 is this central purchasing selection for a CMA. Is there any discussion about this recommendation?
What was the
Expect the purchasing department to be here to present the recommendation.
I thought maybe it was vested in you to say it. Okay.
Who's the recommendation?
Here's Miss Chantel.
This is for the internal construction of ICB.
construction manager at risk, which includes
Internal and
the
external.
exterior and the interior.
Okay, thank
So
you.
1 point of contact.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, apologize, my video was a little delayed. We did go to bid for this according, there's specific statutes in Title 61 on selection of a CMAR. And so we had 3 proposals that were turned in from Lingo, Quad Construction, and Flintco LLC. We conducted interviews. The evaluation committee consisted of engineering, facilities. Our owner's rep team was a part of that. Their scores, from the final determination of scores, Lingo was deemed to be the most qualified CMAR for this project. That is the recommendation I'm presenting to you today. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Refresh my memory. Is Lingo involved? Aren't they doing our the Kraus building as well? Are they CMAR for Kraus, or are they the actual construction contractor?
CMAR at Kraus.
Okay.
At Kraus as well.
Okay.
I think from my perspective, Lingo represents the best qualified CMAR. They have constructed buildings much like what we're doing, exactly like what we're doing. The Heartland building on Broadway, the Middeke building in Bricktown. So they're intimately familiar and presented that in their presentation.
Good. I will move approval that we select Lingo.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you.
On item 4, I have before us the contract for the lease agreement to receive.
Motion to receive.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sorry, I didn't know if I was supposed to come up or not. I was asked by Keith to come and give you guys this contract. I work for facilities management in the Metro office, so do you have any questions or anything?
This is for our district attorney's office to use what was the social services building as their storage, and they will lease it from the PBA.
Yes.
The DA's office. Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll
to
move
approve?
approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 5 is a new parking spot.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Maybe there's a couple there, actually. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any citizens to speak here? Any board comments or new business? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.